Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 16th episode of the Dose of Desi. Today is Saturday, December 10th, 2022. It's the final episode of the year for our podcast. And also, really, after our anniversary episode last time, this is really the start of what we're calling season 2 of our podcast. So we're very excited for what's to come. And we'd like to kick things off with another special guest. I've had the pleasure of meeting her before, but I'm looking forward to speaking more tonight.
That's right. Hey, everyone. Excited to help kick off season 2 of our podcast with today's special guest. She's someone very close to me and has an abundant amount of knowledge in the health field. I would like to introduce Dr. Neha Kumar, who's also my sister. She has a master's along with 2 board certifications as a physician. I'll ask her to elaborate on this further, but I'm excited to have her on. Neha, welcome to the podcast. Oh, I think you're still muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, we're very excited to have you. Can't wait to jump in. But before we get started, just a quick reminder to everyone watching as well, please feel free to share your thoughts, comments, and questions in the chat box throughout the podcast.
That's right. And so to kick things off, actually, I wanted to ask you if you can tell me about your background. I know I did a little bit of introduction. If we can delve in deeper into that, let's get started with that. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, where you're from, that sort of thing?
Sure. So I'm originally from India. I was born and brought up there. I moved to this country in Virginia, to Virginia specifically, with my parents and with my brother. I was a teenager when I moved. So I completed my last year of high school. I went to undergrad at George Mason University, got a Bachelor of Science degree in biology, and then decided I wanted to go to medical school. So I went to medical school at Nova Southeastern University. It's an osteopathic medical school in Fort Lauderdale, Virginia.
Florida, right?
Sorry, say that again?
That's in Florida, right?
That's in Florida, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And after that, I completed my internship in New Jersey, my residency in New York, and my residency was in physical medicine and rehabilitation. After that, got married and moved to Los Angeles, where I worked for Kaiser Permanente for a little bit, and also did some home visits, which are these annual assessments that we do for mainly Medicare patients to make sure these are risk assessments. So I used to go to patients' houses and get a thorough history physical exam and give them recommendations, preventive recommendations on their health. And then in 2017, we moved back to Alexandria, Virginia, and I have been doing various non-clinical jobs since then. And currently I'm working for, the company used to be known as Anthem. Now they're known as Elevance Health. And I do utilization management, or you can say I do medical necessity chart reviews for physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy services.
That's pretty cool. I actually didn't even know that you did physical therapy, occupational. I know physical therapy ties in with physical medicine rehab, but I didn't know some of the other things. So that's pretty interesting. Hassan, I'm going to ask one more question, then I'll let you have it. Hand it over to you. How did you know you wanted to be in the health field? Like, what inspired you to want to be in the health field?
So I think the earliest I can remember is when I was in India in school. I used to love biology. So I loved learning about the human body, and that interest kind of continued even during college, which is why I decided, you know what, I think I really want to help people and also pursue my passion. So that's really why and how.
Nice.
So as mentioned, you have 2 board certifications, right? Is one physical medicine and rehab, and then what's the other certification?
Yes. So I missed the most important part, right? One of the most important part that is very close to my heart. So one is physical medicine and rehabilitation. And the second one, I got that actually last year in December, and it's in lifestyle medicine.
And can you
Nice.
tell us, can you tell us a little bit more about that? What made you want to get that, and what's that about?
Sure. So a couple of years ago, my dad had two cardiac stents placed in his heart, and it was very sudden for all of us. We didn't expect it. He had no history of heart disease previously. And that kind of really made me interested in, what's going on. These chronic diseases run in my family, but now that it was so close to me personally, like with my dad, it really made me delve deeper into what's going on. What can we do? What can we change? We're vegetarians, and this is still happening. So I looked further. I contacted some people, and someone who I had contacted, a physician, introduced me to this new field or specialty in medicine called lifestyle medicine. So I started looking further into it, decided that as I learned more about it, I decided that, you know what, I'm going to make some of these changes. Because even me, being a vegetarian all my life, I did have borderline high cholesterol at some point. So I made these changes and they really worked. Like I had more energy, many other benefits. And eventually last year, I decided that I'm going to get certified in it and learn more, like in a more structured manner. I studied for a board exam and did some other, fulfilled some other requirements. So that's really how that was my journey to lifestyle medicine. Now, what is lifestyle medicine? So lifestyle medicine is a specialty of medicine. Physicians and even other healthcare providers can get certified in it. It is an evidence-based specialty that really focuses on the root cause of disease, specifically chronic diseases such as high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, heart disease, and cancer for the most part. These are very common chronic diseases, and I'm sure most people can relate. They know someone in this day and age who has one or perhaps more of them. So the whole premise of lifestyle medicine is that the doctors or the providers that are practicing this way, they focus on changing lifestyle prior to prescribing medications. That's ideal. So they're not saying don't use medicine. They're just saying, we should put a big emphasis on lifestyle if possible prior to medications. But in some cases, lifestyle may be used to even treat or even reverse disease. So lifestyle medicine focuses on prevention, treatment, and in some cases, reversal of disease through lifestyle.
So,
Gotcha.
Hassan, do you have any questions? I have a quick question.
Yeah, go.
So it ties I studied public health for a little bit, and it sounds like prevention is a big thing in public health. So I'm guessing it ties into that. The other thing I wanted to ask you before is I know you've had quite an interest in nutrition for a while, right? Did that also help segue your career into the whole lifestyle medicine? I know, dad's heart thing and a number of other factors, but was nutrition in itself also something that could you speak on that a little bit? I can't seem
Absolutely.
to find my words right now, but
Sure. So that's more on a personal front, and you're right, nutrition did have a big impact. Me, like many other women, girls growing up, have tried many diets to either lose weight or look a certain way. So, and after a while, you just feel like nothing is working because it's not sustainable for you or for me, at least. So that was like the first interest. Okay, so they're focusing on lifestyle. Let me see what type of nutrition they're recommending. And I'm glad you asked that, because lifestyle medicine is not just about nutrition. Lifestyle medicine focuses on the 6 pillars, as they are called. And the first one being nutrition. which they focus on whole food, plant-based nutrition predominantly. So they're not saying be a vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, or any other, follow a certain type of diet, but they're saying eat predominantly whole food and plant-based diet. So that's the first pillar. Is it okay if I tell you a little bit more about the others?
Please.
Okay. Another very important pillar is physical activity. Sleep is the third one. Stress management is an important one. Social connection, I thought was, I don't think, when I used to think of social connection, it was like, okay, it's important, but I didn't know there was so much research behind it, so it's another pillar of lifestyle medicine. And avoiding toxic substances like alcohol, tobacco is the sixth one, or another one. So those are the 6 pillars.
I feel like is there a lot of overlap or I guess some benefits to that, what would tie into like the behavioral health field as well, as you're talking about just social connections to people, and I'm sure diet and activity, things like that, can also affect your wellness. Like, what is the overlap or the type of things that you see that might relate to behavioral health? Just curious.
Yeah, actually, so I recently took a brief course in something called positive psychology. And there, what I learned was that positive emotions positive emotions affect how much someone practices these lifestyle pillars, right? So if you're happy, you're more likely to eat healthy, to go out and exercise, and then and vice versa also. So say you go out for a walk, that also makes you happy because it releases endorphins. There's also a study that shows that eating 7 to 8 servings of fruits and vegetables has been linked to happiness. So it's a reciprocal and reinforcing relationship between emotions and lifestyle behaviors. I think, is that the question that you were asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's interesting to see that. I think there's a lot of interrelationships amongst these different fields, but it's cool to see how that can play a factor, especially as like there's certainly like a behavioral health crisis, I think, that has been increasing, and how lifestyle medicine can play a role in helping with that is interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have just a question out of curiosity. How do you think the pandemic has affected people's health, and what role do you think, especially after the pandemic or tied into with the pandemic, can lifestyle medicine play a role in? Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but any thoughts on pandemic and lifestyle medicine? I know a lot of people lacked social connection, or at least the face-to-face type. It was all virtual. Everyone was more stressed out because everyone was worried about getting sick. Just any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and kind of piggybacking on what I just said about emotions affecting behavior change and vice versa. So we've all heard in the news or read in the news that the pandemic has led to increased mental health problems like depression, anxiety. And then also, I'm sure we have some friends or family, or perhaps we read also in the news, that the pandemic has also led to a lot of people becoming overweight, obese, for various reasons. They couldn't go out, social isolation, all that. So I think this is another great example. Thank you for bringing it up, of what I was saying before. And I think the pandemic also showed us one more thing, and that's kind of related to the social determinants of health, and how it really brought to light that how some populations, based on their social economic factors, are really disadvantaged compared to others. So I think those are some of the major things that are coming to mind. And for all the reasons said before, I think lifestyle medicine can definitely help out, even to prevent another pandemic, actually, to some
Yeah.
extent.
So, so you mentioned social determinants of health, and so that was one of the things I think we were curious about as well, as sort of the overlap a little bit there, and the fact that we're talking about access to care and transportation and all these other factors as well. How does that tie in your field and with lifestyle medicine?
So I think there are so many areas that I can talk about here, but one of the health equity is a major thing that comes to mind. And when we talk about, let's say nutrition, right? A very important pillar, not that the others are not, they're all important. But in this case, if we're talking about nutrition and eating a whole food plant-based diet, I know even in Washington, D.C., there are certain wards in Washington, D.C., where people don't have easy access to these basic necessities, basic foods, like produce, if we're telling them to eat whole foods and plant-based. So that's definitely a food access issue. And I think that's very important. We should, just saying that someone's genes basically are promoting disease in a specific race or ethnicity, and not considering the neighborhood they're living in and what access do they have, socioeconomic factors. I think it's not fair. So yeah, that's just an example with nutrition. Similarly, with physical activity, there might be areas where there are neighborhoods where people don't feel safe walking, maybe outside. So that's why they don't walk. So there could be so many other areas that we can talk about, but those two major ones.
Yeah, those are great points. Do we want to talk about the blue zones that we were looking at earlier? I think that ties into the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Would you mind actually pulling that up on your computer? So I know I've heard of the blue zones before, and I'm sure you have too. Hassan, have you had you heard of the blue zones before?
Not prior to to us talking about, not that term specifically.
Yeah, so there are several areas in the world. I wonder if there are more than just the 5 or 6 that are on the website, but the ones that have been identified are spread all throughout the world, and they're basically areas of the world where people live longer due to their lifestyle. And a lot of when we were talking about this podcast, a lot of what lifestyle medicine sounds like, it ties into this blue zones thing pretty well, or pretty much perfectly. So I wanted to get your thoughts, Neha, on the blue zones. And I know there are some in Greece. There's one in Greece. There's one in California, which initially I didn't think the U.S. would have any, but I was surprised to see that we do. There's one in Japan, Costa Rica. So if you could give us your thoughts on that and how that ties into lifestyle medicine, what your thoughts are on the blue zones.
Yeah. So like you already mentioned, blue zones are areas where people not only live longer, but their quality of life is high. So they're happy with how they're living. They're happy with their current circumstances. And these are the areas where there are the most centenarians, or people who live more than 100 years. So on this website, actually, I have been on this website. They mention a few components that were common amongst the blue zones, kind of like the secret of, oh, how are these people living such a good quality of life and living that long? And a lot of them actually coincide with the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. So their nutrition is plant-based, not 100% plant-based, but it's predominantly plants. They just naturally move. So that's the physical activity part. Social connection or bonding with their family is very strong. Another one is that another interesting one that I know about the blue zones is that they have a sense of purpose, which I feel like it's so important. And a very interesting one to me. It was great to read that. They're living with a sense of purpose, so hence their quality of life is high. So, and then another one that I read about is avoiding toxic substances. So, like we said, tobacco, alcohol. Interestingly, in some of these blue zones, they avoid it, but they don't eliminate it. So I read that they, in one of them, I forget which country, but they do drink and enjoy 1 to 2 glasses of wine.
I know in Greece and in Italy for sure.
Yes, in
Yeah.
Europe for sure. Yeah.
I mean, I lived in Albania, and that's in the middle of, right next to Greece, and then Italy's on the other side, and they love their wine. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I think what the key word to me was, okay, so they're enjoying 1 to 2 glasses of wine. How is it different than here? I think the key is 1 to 2, or moderation in what they're drinking. So yeah, I think there is such a big overlap between the two, but I'm not surprised because lifestyle medicine is not someone's opinion. It is evidence-based, so I'm not surprised. And when I think of the blue zones, I kind of think of just when certain factors are, when I think of certain factors, I kind of think of how life in countries like where I was born, India, was maybe a little bit different than here. Like over there, your neighbor may just knock on the door and be like, hey, I don't have something in my house. Like, hey, do you have extra? I ran out of sugar, or I ran out of milk. I don't know. I'm just coming up with something. But it's very common that social connection is there, So that's what I thought of.
So curious, actually want to elaborate on that, if y'all don't mind. I agree, having lived in India, having grown up in India. I mean, mom used to hand me off to the neighbors sometimes, and that it was just like a different vibe.
Yeah.
Whereas here, people are a little bit more concerned about safety, things are different, and that's fine. But just curious, what are your thoughts on what is it in the US system and our life in the US that we're like lacking, that doesn't, that doesn't help us? I mean, obviously I know some things, we work a lot, so that creates a lot of stress. We sometimes lack work-life balance. The US, not everywhere, but most of it is laid out for cars, not necessarily for people, in most areas. Again, not always true, but just what are your thoughts on that? Like, what is it that, in your opinion, from what you've learned, we need to kind of work on here, including in our own lives?
Yeah, I think I think saying that India has this, US doesn't, or another country has this and our country doesn't, maybe overgeneralizing,
Okay.
because even in countries like India, so many metropolitan cities have been westernized. People are working 80-hour weeks, and their life is pretty similar to a lot of people here. So it really, I feel like, comes down to, no matter where you're in the world, it really comes down to you as a person. And a lot of us, I feel like, are also people pleasers. And sometimes we make decisions in life that we know that, oh, maybe my mom would like this. This will make my mom proud, or my dad proud, or any other family member proud. And we sometimes forget to ask our own selves, will this make me proud? Will this make me happy? So no matter where you are located, just coming down to your core and really focusing on what matters to you, what has meaning to you, what is purposeful to you, and focusing on those things and slowly adding those activities back into your day. I think can really be helpful. And I'm saying this, but that does not mean I do it 100%. I keep when I'm talking to you, I'm actually reminding myself to do it as well. Because I think in this fast society, we all need to be reminded of this.
So slowing down is like a thing of its own then.
Yeah. Slowing down and really getting to know yourself and doing things that give you joy, even if it's 10 minutes a day.
You gotta advocate for yourself in a way, right?
Yeah.
No, that's really interesting. And sometimes I feel like this is not talked about enough. Of a lot of folks will default to improve your diet and exercise, but finding purpose in what you do and things like that. I mean that hearing the impact that can make is very interesting for sure. I did want to talk about one thing as I was kind of talking with Udit before this about the topic. He'd mentioned one of your thoughts or kind of your things that you follow is food as medicine. So I was wondering if you could sort of dive into that a bit more, what that means for you and how you practice that as well.
Sure. So food as medicine, personally for me, I think has been a journey. And knowing what I know now, I truly believe that what someone puts in their mouth 3 times a day, at least, right? We all eat at least 3 meals. Most people eat 3 meals a day. It can either be your medicine or it could hurt you. Maybe not in the short term, but in the long term. So that's really what it means to me. And I think as you go through life and different experiences, you will, at one point, you come to a point where you start realizing how true it is, like not just saying it because it sounds good, but it is true. So I think through my own journey, I've realized that. And again, by no means, I'm not perfect. I still eat things that perhaps I should eat less of or not eat them at all. But that's really what it means to me. And sorry, if there was a second part to your question, I would have to ask you to repeat that.
No, I mean, I think, so I guess going off of that, like, what are your recommendations that you would have for people in that? Is it a matter of, I know a lot of people often say like eat foods in moderation. Is it as simple as that, or are there other, ideas or recommendations that you would have as well?
So eat foods in moderation. I hear that a lot from family members. And I think being a vegetarian myself and my whole family being a vegetarian, we say that a lot. Oh, we're just having this dessert. We're doing it in moderation. But yet there are so many people across the world, just not just my family or the US, or where even though people are vegetarians, a majority of the country is vegetarian, but they have these chronic diseases. So clearly something is not working. So I'm not sure if that advice is really true. Secondly, I think another aspect and a big learning point for me when I studied for my boards in lifestyle medicine and as I'm continuing reading the books and the other texts is that dosing, just like, when you go to a doctor, say someone has high blood pressure, the doctor will be like, okay, here is the name of the medication. And the second thing that they write is the dose of the medication, right? So if we are really considering food as medicine or lifestyle as medicine, we should not forget about that dosing here as well, right? So if someone already has a chronic disease, say someone has diabetes or they have pre-diabetes, then those things that they are eating in moderation, maybe they have to really cut it out. And that's the dosing when it comes to this. It's just putting it into context. So instead of thinking like, oh, I'm taking something out of my life, what we should really strive to do is add more foods. I was going to say fruits and vegetables, because that's the majority of it, into our lives. So because if we think of, oh, we're going to take, oh, I cannot have cheese anymore because it's high in saturated fat, it's going to increase my cholesterol eventually, sometimes leading to heart disease most of the time. So instead of saying, oh, I cannot have cheese, that's okay. I'm going to still make my pizza, use nutritional yeast instead, which your taste buds may take time to adjust to, and fill your pizza, instead of the cheese, put an extra dose or an extra serving of your favorite vegetable. You don't have to stick to broccoli if you don't like broccoli or any other thing, right? So fill your plate with lots of vegetables, lots of fruits, legumes, whole grains, and focus on that.
I will.
Sorry.
No, I will say throughout the years, as you've been learning about lifestyle medicine, and I know you and I have talked, and you've you've had us, like as a family, try different things. That's why I like make those faces. Yeah, I mean, I think we've come a long way in terms of like making a vegan pizza, rather than just using nutritional yeast. Or I will say I really admire that about you, is that you don't give up. When you experiment, you try many new things in terms of nutrition, and I've really enjoyed seeing how you've come a long way with that, and learned a lot in that area. So just thought.
Thank you. I feel in this area I don't give up, because I feel like there's always so much to learn, and I don't feel like this is someone's opinion. Science is telling us this, and an apple is not made in a factory. God has, or nature, let's say nature has given us that apple. There's one ingredient on it, So how can that be wrong? Like if a diet is telling you don't eat fruits and vegetables, I'm not sure about that one. So,
and before we continue, Hassan, I'm curious, what about you? Like, I don't know what, we've both talked about foods a little bit here. I'd love to hear a little bit from you about your thoughts on food. Is that, what are your thoughts? I mean, I know your diet is a little bit different. I know you eat halal, so just curious.
I thought you were gonna put me on the spot, like, I know you eat all this junk food. I was like, man, trying to call me out here. Like,
I didn't say that. You did.
But no, I know I could certainly improve my diet for sure. But no, I think a lot of there's certainly it makes sense, because I you think about your body really is the engine that will serve all these functions in life, and in order to sort of keep it going, you got to think about what comes in, and then how you manage it, and all the other factors around you. And so I think it definitely it's something that I think makes sense, and just hearing different ideas or approaches of how to like get people on board, I think is interesting for sure. So one of the questions I had is, because this is certainly lifestyle medicine, as you said, is evidence-based, right? There's research, there's information out there to prove the benefits of this. I'm curious if you've presented or had the opportunity to take this information at a conference or in a paper or anything like that, and what was the topic and your experience in that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So just last month, actually, mid-November, I was with some of my other friends and colleagues. I was in Orlando, Florida, for Lifestyle Medicine 2022. It's a conference by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and I got the chance to co-facilitate a culinary medicine workshop for 25 participants. It was a pre-workshop, so it started it was a day before the actual conference started. So it was a lot of fun, and I'm so glad I got to do it. Basically, we there were five of us, and we facilitated and helped the participants cook various recipes that we had provided to them, and gave them instruction or help wherever they needed it, and some tips based on either our personal or professional experiences in cooking. So there were a few recipes that we made, nothing too difficult, but the end result was good, I thought. So it was a lot of fun. So that was the most recent participation that I had at LM22.
What were some of the things you or the participants learned to cook?
So we made curried chickpeas. We made a bowl, so different ingredients in a bowl, and how to layer them. We made date bites. So it's made with dates, walnuts, coconut. That's, you pretty much do it, prepare it in a food processor, very easy recipe. And then roasted vegetables.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've.
Uh-oh.
I think you cut out there.
Are you still?
You're like frozen on screen. We can't really. Oh, there we go. Now you're moving.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had some connection issues there too. Yeah, I was just saying. I think I've tried your date bites, and those are quite good.
Yeah, they're so simple to make too. That's the best part.
Yeah, I have one question continuing on. I know there's a approach this. So some people say, some people are on like keto diets, and they say, just eat cheese, high fats, low carbs, and you'll lose a lot of weight. And then other people say, oh, eat a lot of whole grains. Then other people say, oh, well, gluten, the modern form of gluten and the way it's grown, it's not good for you, so don't eat that. There's so many opinions out there. How does one filter through all of those opinions and determine, what works and what doesn't?
So you mentioned the keto diet. I would say that based on my understanding of that diet, or maybe I should not focus on one diet. I think as a general rule, what I would suggest is that don't just look at the short-term results of a diet, but focus on the long term. What is a diet that's going to give you the benefits throughout your life? And it's going to be a lifestyle, as opposed to, oh, I'll do it for 2 months, lose weight for a wedding coming up or an event, and then you gain the weight back. And I've been there. That used to happen to me. I used to be like the first one to try all the diets, and then nothing really was sticking. So that would be my advice. Don't go for something short term. Look at the long term benefits and consequences of what you're considering. So,
okay. And back to the original question, I know I kind of went off on a tangent there, but so I know we were talking about any conferences or papers or studies that you've worked on, and you mentioned that you taught at a conference on how to cook. Or was there anything else that you wanted to add on to that? Are there any conferences coming up that you're going to be presenting at, anything like that?
So at a conference, that's been the only experience I've had. However, I have helped I've helped a few residents and medical students at a local university. So it was led by a colleague/friend of mine, but I was there to help out, answer some of their questions. I presented a recipe, and as they were cooking, this was virtually, as they were cooking, I was there to answer any of the questions they had or to guide them in if they needed that. Yeah.
So I had kind of a question as well about sort of lifestyle medicine, how it fits in with just sort of medicine as a whole. So there's often, discussion about like naturopathic medicine, and I've known a couple providers who, it was all about like there's supplements, and then they also did acupuncture as well. And then there's sort of the quote unquote traditional medicine, right? That you would have. I was curious on your thoughts on sort of that divide, and where you feel lifestyle medicine falls in that spectrum.
That is a great question. So lifestyle medicine falls under it is a specialty under the traditional medicine bracket. So that's what I would say. And then in terms of naturopathic medicine, that's something totally different. I'm actually not too aware of that, but I can tell you lifestyle medicine is a specialty that physicians or other providers can get certified in, just like they would get certified in other medical specialties. But in order to get certified in lifestyle medicine, at least for physicians, you have to have a primary specialty. So for instance, a doctor has to be specialized in my case, it's rehab medicine, but another doctor could be specialized in family medicine, internal medicine, surgery even. And then their second specialty would be lifestyle medicine. So it's basically, you're learning everything in the traditional medicine model through your primary specialty, depending on what it is. But then you're learning the skills and the knowledge that you need to apply lifestyle medicine, or the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, to behavior change, right? Through lifestyle medicine. And you're learning about the research that's behind it and other stuff that goes with it.
Gotcha. So things like acupuncture as like alternative treatment methods, things like that. That's not really something that you have delved into or your experience. It's sort of a separate
yes.
pathway to treatment.
Yes, it is separate. It's separate than complementary and alternative medicine techniques like acupuncture.
Or chiropractic medicine, that kind of thing too.
Yeah, it's separate.
Gotcha. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the health IT field as sort of that's my background in healthcare and in analytics and technology as well. So I was just curious if, like, in your experience or your time, like what are the systems or technologies that you currently use, or the primary ones that you've used in the past?
Okay, so in terms of EMR, when I used to practice, I used to use in my practice Epic. And in terms of lifestyle medicine, actually this recent conference, I have heard many people talking about how Epic can be changed to incorporate some of the tools that we need specifically for lifestyle medicine. So I think that, I'm not sure if it's already happening, but if it's not, it's soon going to. There will be a functionality to focus on some lifestyle medicine screening tests and tools and follow-up tools, so things like that.
Gotcha. And so you mentioned, currently you're not in a practicing setting, right? But your work is sort of virtual, remote.
Yes.
What does that look like, I guess, from a technology standpoint? Are you on Zoom calls all day, or like, just curious of what your work is like now?
So I have been provided a computer by my work, and I'm pretty much it's a setup where I log on through Workday. Everyone knows Workday, right? And then, but there is a separate website we go to access cases that are in a queue, and you basically start reviewing the cases to determine if they meet or do not meet medical necessity for physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. And there's a whole team that I work with. So it's not even though it's remote, there is a team of physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, physicians, and we're all working on these cases as a team and constantly communicating if there are any questions.
But I guess the big picture view, I'm guessing that's kind of what Hassan you were asking about in terms of most of your work, it sounds like is remote and virtual then, right? And you
Yes.
utilize tools such as Zoom and whatnot, like most of us do these days,
Yes.
um, which
Teams.
I,
So for us, it's
Team. Okay.
sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt, but go
no,
ahead.
that's okay. We're actually on our way to Teams as well. We're
Oh,
finally getting rid of Skype soon.
okay, great.
Welcome, welcome to the government. No, they're great. It's just a little slow sometimes. Um, but yeah, I mean, since we're talking about health IT and remote work and virtual and all of that, I just want to add, or I want to add on another question. Do you think how do you think this new work style is affecting everyone? And whether it's in terms of lifestyle medicine in general or whatnot. I mean, it used to be that we used to get up and get around, go to the office every day, and I know everybody dislike that to some degree, going into the office 5 days a week. But now we live in a world where there's more flexibility. A lot of people work more from home, but maybe they're more sedentary, or maybe they have families and other stressors to worry about, and some people want to separate the workspace from their family life. Any thoughts on any of that? Just what are your thoughts about that, and where do you think that's going, and how do you think that's going to affect human beings, I guess?
Yeah, so I think it could go either way. And when we go out to an office, I feel like the environment is kind of, and our schedule is kind of controlled for us. Oh, okay, you have to report at 8 and you're going to 9, or you're going to leave at 5. And this is the location you will be. These will be your colleagues. This is where you'll be sitting. This is your lunchtime. So it's kind of controlled for us. Whereas when we're at home, we have to take that charge of controlling it for us. So initially, when I started working remotely, it was definitely a challenge. I mean, yeah, I was saving on the commute time and everything, but it was a challenge in terms of eye fatigues. There would be times I wouldn't take any breaks. But then you slowly learn that, you know what, no, now I'm in charge, and I have to create a balance between getting my work done, being diligent about that, and also making sure that I'm taking care of myself. So now, if I may give an example, going back to physical activity, I noticed that as I'm reviewing the cases, I am actually standing a lot, which is I purposely have a standing desk, and I notice like it really helps a lot. Like sitting for a little bit, standing for a little bit. I make sure I take my breaks on time, lunch on time, another break on time, and it's up to me to make that distinction between, okay, now work is over and I'm off duty now. So the onus really lies upon you, and that's really the main message I would like to get across.
I feel like probably different people also handle that environment differently, right? In terms of like some people probably thrive in it more, and then some people they just want to get out of the house and do stuff, and it's probably how you have to adapt to that situation and
Yes,
find a way
absolutely.
to make it work. Yeah.
You have to have the personality. Some people just cannot, and that's totally fine. They want to be around people, but I feel like depending on the stage of life you're in, it can really be a blessing to be at home, or maybe not. Depends on your personality and where your life circumstances also.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me to stand up, by the way.
Sure.
So going back to the technology question here, so in terms of there's a lot of tools and technology that are out there these days, and I'm curious as to what you found that could be relevant to your field. Like I think of, for an example, there's a lot of mobile apps on your phone now where you can start tracking activities and things that you do. And do you feel like that type of thing is effective, or is that like too much for people? Like, or have you found things like that that could be useful that you might recommend? Just curious of your thoughts and that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. I think once again, it depends on your personality. It kind of reminds me of, so I'm thinking of a specific physical activity tracking app, right? Like a watch that you can wear and then you can see the trends. Okay, so over the last week, this is how many steps I got this day, Monday, and then Saturday, and what can I improve? So in terms of that, if you take it in that, vein that, okay, I'm going to look at this data so that I can improve upon it, then definitely it's helpful. However, sometimes we get so caught up in numbers and we can be really hard on ourselves. So that's something that perhaps should be avoided. Just like if someone's trying to lose weight, they would step up on the scale and be like, oh, and they would do it every single day. That can be counterproductive, right? So but overall, I think these are great. So the fitness tracking, or the tracking your physical activities, number of steps, has been very helpful for me. Another one that I do almost on a daily basis, on a regular basis, is some mindfulness apps. And the one I'm going to talk about, I'm not in any way affiliated with any of the brands or the names that I'm saying today, but I use this personally, and it's called Insight Timer. And they have guided meditations. I believe they also have a setting where you can just set a timer and meditate on your own. I'm not that far advanced yet, but I use their guided meditations a lot, and I really enjoy them. And those few minutes that I do, maybe 10 minutes every day, I definitely feel that it changes how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling the whole day. So definitely helpful. I've also used Calm, CALM, and Headspace for a similar mindfulness aspect. Let's see what else. Those are the ones that I've used. I know some people use MyFitnessPal and other apps that you can track your calories on that, I believe. And as well as your steps or physical activity. I think it has everything in it, if I'm correct. However, I know in the future, I don't have the name of the app with me right now, but I know someone who is working on an app to teach people how to cook, starting from the basic skills to getting into advanced cooking skills. So I think the future is looking really bright in terms of.
I need that app. Whenever that comes out, just send it to me. I don't know how to cook a thing.
Yes, I will definitely let you know.
Do you know if it's going to be like a free app or is it like a paid app? Do you know, I know we're getting into, it's still being developed and whatnot, but you said it's like step by step. So like you watch videos or like, I don't know what's the premise?
I believe so. I have not accessed it yet. I'm not sure if it's out yet actually, but in the future it will be out, and I'll make sure I'll share the name with you both.
Sure. And I know in terms of mental health and mindfulness, just want to throw it out there. I know some people some people meditate, other people just pray, other people, go out into nature. So everybody has different ways of kind of finding that inner balance. Yes.
And that actually reminds me, another important, really, I don't want to call it a ritual, but another important aspect that they found in the blue zones is that a lot of the people were involved in faith-based communities, not talking about a specific religion or anything, but in general, that was a commonality that they found. So I think that speaks for itself.
Nice. Well, I think this has been super interesting. So thank you for sharing your insights into all of this. It was good to hear this and hear some of the things that I don't think, at least myself, have heard enough of. So thank you for sharing that. We like to sort of also, we wanted to end with like a fun little question that we like to throw in these little like what if scenarios to people as well. So we had a what if question of, if what if you weren't a doctor, you weren't a part of lifestyle medicine as your career, what would you be doing? Is there some other interest or thing that you would probably be pursuing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this. So, if I was not a doctor, there are two things that come to mind. I think I would either be a nutritionist or be a health coach. Yeah.
Why?
Why? I think it really goes back to my interest in nutrition that has been there for a while. That's why I said nutritionist. And now knowing what I know now, this is the whole experience with lifestyle medicine and changing my own lifestyle and then seeing my husband change his lifestyle has really made me interested in behavior change and what really leads to behavior change in terms of psychology. How can you help someone else change their behaviors? And health coaching really focuses a lot on that. So that's really why I mentioned those two.
Okay. And one final question for you to wrap things up. Are there any resources that you'd like to mention? If people want to get in touch with you, is there a way that you prefer? Just anything that you want to throw out there in terms of resources, how to get in touch with you. Maybe you have friends who are in lifestyle medicine that you want to mention, anything along those lines.
Yeah, sure. So one of the resources that I would like to tell you guys and also your audience would be about this one website where you can find different types of research studies related to nutrition. Again, I'm not affiliated with them, but I share this website with people a lot because it's not someone's opinion. It's really evidence-based nutrition facts. And the website's name is nutritionfacts.org. So nutrition, FACTS, facts.org. That's the one resource I would like to share. In terms of how to get in contact with me, feel free to email me. I can provide you with my email address. It's my last name, Kumar, Kumar, first name Neha, Neha, 13@gmail.com. And your third, you kind of touched on it. So I do know someone who I mentioned culinary medicine a couple of times during our talk. And if you or your audience would like to hear more about culinary medicine, I do know someone who is really involved and dedicated to that cause. And we can definitely get in touch with her. And I'm sure she would love to be on the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that as well. Definitely for folks listening, take advantage of the resources and things that are out there for sure. But thank you for your time and speaking with us today.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks
for
joining us. Well, yeah, I just wanted to say that. Go ahead, Hassan.
So for anybody else as well watching, make sure that you share your thoughts with us via any comments, social media. We are at Twitter at the Dose of Desi. And you can also email us at thedoseofdesipod@gmail.com.
And as always, keep an eye on our social media for any polls, episode notifications, or any other news. Thanks again, Neha, for joining us. Hassan, thanks for being open to discussing this topic. I know it's kind of a deviation from our usual topics, but I think it's very important and I really enjoyed it. So thank you both. And with that, have a great rest of the weekend. Take care and see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.